Good afternoon and welcome to the final stretch of the day. This is our final panel for the day, and definitely the most interesting one. We are going to be talking about technology solutions enabling textile-to-textile recycling. So we've been talking about T2T today a lot. There's been a lot of questions about costs, feedstock, technology, and we have really kind of skirted around the question of technology. What's available, what's not available, do we need more? And I think this is what we would like to look at right now. And before we start, I would like to ask our participants to introduce themselves. Kate, would you maybe start?
Am I on? Yes.
Yes.
Hi, so my name's Kate Riley. I work in our Climate and Nature Impact Department at Textile Exchange. I'm part of our thought leadership team, and my role is working on strategy for special projects. So I look at what is Textile Exchange's position and viewpoint on specific things focused on textile-to-textile recycling, as well as looking at some specific projects within our standards department as well. So what's our view, for example, on non-textile materials in the materials matter standard going forwards. It's my role to do the internal research, fact-finding, and put forward a recommendation. So I have a background in textile-to-textile recycling, both within a brand and within Textile Exchange. So I'm here today to share that expertise.
Thank you. Sarah?
Yeah, Sara Rackstank here. I'm CEO in Repass. We are working with traceability, transparency, and the flow of the data everywhere in the value chain. So maybe mostly known as digital product passports, but we like to talk about it as data fluency and digital identity of the product.
Okay. And last but not least, Tim?
Hi, Tim Cross. I wear two hats. I'm a polyester recycler. I've got UK's only textile-to-textile polyester recycling system set in the UK. And to feed that, I've also founded something called the Circular Textiles Foundation, which is all about textile circularity and design to try and make clothing that is designed to be recycled and therefore recyclable through the various different recycling technologies that are out there and emerging.
Thank you. So when talking about technology, there's lots of it available, but before we dive into the technology part, I think it'd be interesting to have an idea of the textile-to-textile ecosystem and the market. And Kate, maybe you could give us an overview of that?
Sure. So within our organisation, we have a recycled team as part of our engagement and partnerships department, and I work very closely with that team who are on the ground talking day to day to recyclers. And I would say at the moment, what we are hearing from the industry is things are a little bit challenging. There's some difficulties recyclers are facing. But I would say on the positive side, we have technology solutions. We have mechanical recycling technologies. We have chemical recycling technologies. And we've seen some of our recyclers scale, and we see a lot of great plans to scale in the next 5 to 10 years. So I'd say the situation in the market at the moment is a little bit mixed, but we do see some positive signs, and we see a lot of interest in recycling, and we see brands making those partnerships, and we really want to see more of that in the next few years.
Thank you. We talk about recycling and textile to textile, but there's more than recyclers in the industry. What's the status for the sorters and the collectors and all these organizations that bring the feedstock? And Tim, that's probably why you started your second business, or because the feedstock wasn't there.
Yeah, but so most recyclers, in fact, pretty much all recyclers don't recycle clothing. They recycle post-industrial textile waste. And that's what we've got to change. We have a scenario where we are looking for minimum recycled content in clothing, and we absolutely want minimum recycled content in clothing. That's definitely where we want to go. But if it's always coming from textile waste, well, textile waste is going to be between 5 and 10% of all the production. So if we want to get to above 10%, we need to be recycling clothing. And if clothing isn't designed to be recycled and is really, really difficult to recycle, then it's going to be very challenging for us to get beyond 10%. So design for recyclability is a cornerstone of EPR. It makes perfect sense that we should be pushing that barrier so that we are making more clothing that is actually recyclable.
Thank you. Yeah, I think it's really important to look at that, and that's where the question of, is it design or is it a lack of technology to enable the recycling that exists? Do we need more technologies? I don't know, Kate or Sarah or Tim, do you think we need more recycling technologies, new ones, different ones?
We have the technology. It is already there and it is already functioning at commercial scale in both cotton and polyester. So it is demand that is holding us back, not the technology. And that is something that obviously minimum recycled content will change. We also think that actually that the technologies that are out there are producing really good quality yarns. We've just got to expand on that and use it more in our garments.
Yeah, I would definitely agree. I think from a textile exchange point of view, we would love to see brands and the industry supporting and scaling recycled solutions that exist today. As we said, we have mechanical solutions, we have chemical solutions. What we don't have is the infrastructure around those solutions. And if you saw Kirsty's presentation this morning, she talked about circularity as infrastructure. And we have some of those separate parts of that infrastructure, but what we don't have is those gaps in the middle, which is a huge part around sorting and collection. And I think it's no secret the sorters and collectors are struggling. We've seen that a lot in the last 12 to 18 months. So we need to be supporting those organisations around the recyclers so that they can scale, that they can have access to the feedstocks they need that are prepared in a way that they can work with them. And, you know, to your point on design for recycling, that would help ensure feedstock consistency. There will be garments that we can't necessarily change their design, but there are a lot of garments that we can. And if we have guidelines that say how that can be done, that will increase the availability and the consistency and the stability of the feedstock that the recyclers are getting, so we can then support them to be able to scale. And looking at the infrastructure that comes after that, so thinking, where is that recycled pellet or that recycled fibre going to go? How do we support, you know, the spinning and the processing after that recycling has taken place? So personally, I don't think it's that we need new technology solutions, but we need to support the infrastructure more around those solutions to help make them work and help make them scale.
I think, I don't know where exactly can we locate this definition of technology, but I think I fully agree that the sorting is there that we can scale. And to be able to scale sorting, we need to automatize sorting. To do this, we need to tag. We need to be able to attach the data to the product. Without that, any sorting is not scalable or is depend as deeply on manual processes. So I am a tech part of this discussion. So for me, in case we manage to actually combine the digital identity and the physical identity of the product, then when the product go through the gate in the sorting station, it can be scanned, no matter how many products going through a single gate. It is possible to sort it automatically and then categorize it and send to different recyclers. And this data also can secure the information that recycler needs to deliver the fiber with the data that can be sold with much higher price. So I say there is a lack of technology yet, because we are not having this data infrastructure yet combined with a physical tagging on the product. It's not a rocket science, but it's not implemented yet.
Okay, thank you. And Tim, you have a certification for circularity. So how does that follow the product? Is it you make your T-shirts or the producers come to you, have their...
Exhibitors, we welcome you to stay to our happy hour tonight, sponsored by Kingway, starting at 6 p.m. in Group C1 at the Expert Talks area with the live DJs there, free drinks and snacks.
And for everybody here, we will be finished before 6 p.m. So when a producer comes to you and has his or her product certified, how does that certification follow the product? Is it on a label? Is it a tag? Is it a chemical that's in the product so that the sorters and collectors can identify that?
Okay, so the most important thing is making sure that the design of the garment can be recycled. And we reckon that 2/3 of all garments are very easily recyclable. The first third are garments that are already designed, happen to be designed to be recycled. You just don't know about it, and nor does the recycler. The second third are garments which are probably recyclable if you make one or two minor changes to them. And the final third are the difficult to recycle products, which are going to have lots of laminated layers, lots of trims, which are very difficult to cope with in the recycling system. So what we do is we go through a process of working out whether the garment is associated with one recycler or another or multiple recyclers, and we apportion the certification mark to that recycler. They have to be existing commercial scaled recyclers. And we have just been awarded and checked by the EU IPO a certification mark for recyclability across the whole of Europe. So our Infinity mark is a mark of recyclability. And that means that if that mark is on a garment, it is third-party verified as recyclable. That puts us in a position where brands can put that mark on a garment and say that that garment is recyclable if it has been designed to be recycled. We also have a QR code that goes in the care label, so you're able to then scan that and find out how you recycle that garment and which recycling technologies can recycle it. I think that technology is going to do an awful lot of catching up over the next few years. Certainly, my hope is that AI will hopefully transition us a lot further down that line. But the ability to sort without having to scan QR codes, I think, is possibly the future because the scale of the problem is so massive. But changing the amount of clothing that's going into the system that is then recyclable is the key thing. And feeding that information into DPP then enables us to be able to certify within the DPP that the garment is recyclable. That should lower EPR costs for everybody. Does that answer the question? Or is...
It does, yes. It brings another one, both to you and Sarah. We're talking about automating the sorting and the recognition of textiles. So that means we're going to have some kind of scanning technology that's not based on a QR code because that's too manual. What would that be? Any thoughts? Are we thinking RFID tags?
The problem with RFID tags is you don't know when they're not working, and they're not suitable for every garment. You can't put them in socks. You can't, it's difficult to put them in underwear. There are lots of things. So if you think that you've sorted something with an RFID tag, you don't know what else is in there. And so whilst I am technology agnostic when it comes to sorting systems, I think there'll be lots of different ways of approaching it. My gut instinct is that we need to be much better, or the AI systems will need to be much better at recognizing a garment without scanning a QR code, or finding the right technology that will work with that.
Now in here is sitting one of the best in Europe, Trimco sitting here, and they are working with the tagging. So I feel that I am in most on the data side. But as far as I understand, for the base layers, normally we are not talking about the electronics like RFID or NFC or anything like electronic chip. Because first of all, the time period that you're using the piece is short, so you have enough time. The DPPs is normally visible. The second is that we are normally thinking that to traditional technology, you need to scan every QR code separately. But with AI, you're not doing that. When you're actually sending a piece to a wind corridor, the camera is finding a woven QR code, and the woven QR code is not the one that is actually extra. It can be a woven inside your product, inside the product. So there are technologies that the suppliers of the labels, they are working with that. So you can work with the woven labels, and then you can have scanners that work with the AI. So I believe that in the next years, as we are focusing on scaling sorting, then we need to get the relevant technology. And regarding the RFID, I hear a lot that no, RFID is not relevant for digital product passport because RFID has technically just one link, just has one number, GTIN number, or just one product number on it. It is correct, but that number is connected to the digital link, and the digital link is connected to digital product passport. So, and all of these connections are on EU portal level talking to each other. So we can actually today connect all of this together. So we have from Bestseller, H&M, at least these big ones, all of them already have a RFID. The problem, I believe that we are looking at it on silos. RFID, everybody look at it like a solution for retail. Instead of looking at, oh no, guys, wait, keep it. You can use it later. We are using technology very silo-based. We are not thinking that it is possible to use it later.
That's awesome. So assuming that we do have the technology and conversely we don't need new technology, what would be stopping us as an industry? Tim, I think we kind of approached that in our pre-discussion, and you shared that your PET is both cost neutral and 90% lower in terms of CO2 emissions. But why are we not moving forward?
It is not that brands don't want to, they do. It is not that the product isn't there, it is. It just takes a very long time for adoption. And because brands aren't forced to change, there is no minimum recycled content target set yet, then they are waiting. And they are waiting and going, well, just try a little bit. And it just needs to be accelerated much more quickly. But with EPR and DPPs being pushed further and further down the line, it is making it much harder for people like myself to sort of stress the urgency to brands that actually you need to get moving now. And actually, that's what we want, is we want to see legislation saying you must get on with this. Otherwise, they will keep pushing it down the line. And it's very difficult for brands. I don't suggest for a minute that it's not. That actually, in the economic climate that we're in at the moment, it's extremely challenging for brands. The idea of anything that's going to cost them more is really challenging. So we need to be aware of that. And our product, our polyester pellet, is cost comparative with bottle flake. So we are trying to push into that same place that bottle is and displace bottle. And hopefully legislation again will push bottle out of the garment market and enable T2T polyester to step into that.
Yeah, and I think I would also add, sort of from a brand point of view, it can be sometimes really difficult to make these changes. And, if there is going to be policy or legislation coming in, the time that it will take a brand to make that change, and then to have to make another change, it's really, really difficult. So, the industry needs that direction and that guidance to know what they need to do. And we do see brands wanting to wait for policy and legislation, which we understand. But at the end of the day, we have the recyclers at the other end who need that support and who need those partnerships and who need the signals for demand to be able to scale up the solutions that the brands want and need. And with the lead times that we have across the industry, that doesn't happen overnight. So we have to kind of bring all of these things forward so that by the time legislation is there, the system is already moving in the right direction rather than we're just starting to turn the wheel. If we don't do anything now, then the wheel's not even going to be moving by the time policy and legislation comes in. We need to be already halfway around that wheel. We need to just know the direction we're going in, and we know that direction is going to be recycled content targets. So we need to be moving on that now. We may not know the percentage, we may not, know more details right now, but we know the direction, and the direction is recycled content. So if you're in a brand, start that wheel moving, make the changes that you can make now, because that will be so much easier than waiting 2 or 3 years and having to start from scratch. You may not get the number right at this point in time, but you will be on the path to get there in another 2 or 3 years or another 2 or 3 seasons when those numbers do come in. If we're talking 5%, 10%, 20%, whatever that might be, we still know the direction and we have to start moving in that direction.
I think that's the point. We're working with one client at the moment who has just said, yeah, we're going to definitely do this. This is brilliant. Really looking forward to it. Let's get some trials underway. Well, from their timescales, those trials starting now won't be on people's backs until autumn, winter 27. Wow. Okay, so that's a long time out for this to happen. And that's why brands need to at least know who they need to speak to and start those conversations now and start getting involved in T2T content, because otherwise it's going to take you so long to get that into the production system that legislation will already be upon you before you've even made the introductions.
Okay, thank you. Sarah, what's your position? So we've spoken about the difficulty to access the data, but is there something else? Is there also a lack of transparency or an actual lack of data?
You know what? This is really, really a technical discussion. So sometimes I feel like a car mechanical between some engineers talking. So I really need to be careful how much I jump in this discussion. But something I understand, I am extremely blessed to work closely with a lot of you in the industry. So I want to share an example. We are working closely with a wool recycling company. So what we learned is that the level of the data that is available with the fiber when they are recycling, affecting the price of the fiber and affecting how easy they can sell it in the market. Okay, so for me, like a pure engineer, is that, okay, let's look at how much data we have, and instead of waiting to create a complete detailed data overview with everything possible, let's look at every of our stakeholders in your value chain, which each one of them, how much data they have today, and if you put them together, how much data we can deliver to you in a way. So I fully agree with you that if we, instead of waiting to build quite complex data infrastructure and setting like targets that take time to achieve, have more practical approach and combine this practicality on the data level as well as on the process level, then it affects the business itself. So I don't think we do not have enough information, at least when we are looking at wool, at cotton, at polyester. In these 3 categories, it is quite a lot of information available.
Yeah.
And I say, let's look at that. Let's build that instead of making more complex discussion.
Yeah, and actually we have a practical example we can share. If we can flip the screens, please. There should be a QR code. You can scan that QR code, and that will take you to a link from Repass to the DPP for a sweatshirt, a wool sweatshirt. And you can click on all the different fields in there, and you will see that there's lots of information in there. And it's worth trying. The information today is what it is. It might be imprecise. It might not be what is going to be requested by DPP, but the structure is actually there, and we can already play with this. And I think this is where it is super interesting. And hearing that Tim's customers are going to be testing it in fall or autumn 2027 it's frightening, because the legislation is going to be rolling out 6 months later, or applicable less than 6 months later, when we can already start playing with that. And I think it's super interesting to see how we can already play with that data.
You know what? This information that you see here, there is nearly no complex API systems. Is a combination of Excel files, emails, and Google Drive information on that level, literally. And this is a combination of, okay, each supplier, what information they could deliver to us over one email. But as you see, it is possible to follow that one company have a post-production waste that deliver to a recycling company. And then according to the fibers are delivered to a company to create the sweater. And then the sweater goes to an owner, and then it is like repaired. And you're following that information. And this is much better than nothing. And we already know that they can sell it with higher prices, the fiber, even with this level, because this is about the material, composition, certifications, and chemicals. It was that one. We just keep ourselves on that 4 category, on tier 1 and tier 2. That's it.
Okay.
I think that ability to trace what has gone into that garment from the very beginning really makes a big difference to the sorting and collecting systems at the end of it. If we've certified that the garment is recyclable, you're putting value in at the beginning.
Absolutely.
And that value stays with it throughout its life, because somebody will always want it at the end of its life. If it's going to be impossible to recycle, or you don't know what's gone into it because you haven't filled in the data for your DPPs, then nobody is going to want that product at the end of its life, because it's going to be too difficult and too expensive to recycle.
And I think also it's important that we have such a vast range of recycling technologies. We need to know when it gets to the sorter which recycler to send it to. Not all recyclers will be able to accept the same things. So it's important that we have the system in place that can direct the garments to the right place. Like, you don't necessarily want something that's not compatible with your system arriving at your front door, but it needs to go to somebody's front door in an appropriately pre-processed state where it can be recycled. And that system would help to support that. So it's kind of like, here's my garment, here's what's in it, and here's the recyclers, 5 to 10, whoever it might be, that can process that garment. And having that understanding of what are the differences between the technologies, which recyclers can accept 100% polyester, which can accept maybe 10% cotton, maybe a few percent of elastane, maybe some different treatments on the surface. Like, all of those different technical points of a fabric and a garment will make a huge difference to a recycler. And if you get a batch of something at your front door that isn't what you need, that's going to make your life really, really difficult. So we need to be able to do that upstream, so that by the time the garments get baled up, they know where they're going and they know that there is a route for them to be recycled. And I think that's half the battle at the moment, is understanding what are the different specifications between recyclers, and how do we create a system where it's efficient and economically viable for a sorter to sort them and send them to the right place, because we're not going to be able to collect everything and send it to one recycler. But how do we make it so that we can sort and collect things efficiently to support all the recyclers that exist, I think is a big part of it as well.
And trying to do that before all the sorters and aggregators collapse, because the economics of that aren't there. So, yeah.
Yeah. Earlier on, we mentioned we've got all these different technologies, and Kate, when we were discussing this a few days ago, you said something that I found was really interesting, was that brands think they need to go all in on only one technology, but they actually don't. Like, can you elaborate on that? Is it about, because we're talking about eco-design or design for recyclability, design for disassembly, can brands, or how do brands, or should they embrace different technologies or should they look to have only one for all of their products? Because some of their products are going to be different. So,
yeah, I would say that if you're a brand, look at all the technologies that support your product range. We know there is competition for exclusivity. We know that there are some brands who have, we see a lot of great announcements between recyclers and brands. And I think we need more of that. But I think we need more brands to be supporting recyclers. It's not, I'm brand A, therefore I'm going with recycler A and that's it. We can have, if we had more brands supporting each recycler, I think we would get further in terms of scale a lot quicker. So for me, it's not about exclusivity and it's not about having that one partnership. It's about having multiple partnerships to support your product range and looking at the recyclers that can offer. You may do outdoor products, you may do sportswear products, you may do lifestyle products. They will all have different needs when it comes to recycling technologies. So from my point of view, support all of the recyclers that service your product range. You don't need to go for exclusivity with only one recycler because we're not going to achieve our shared goals that way. We will achieve our shared goals if we're supporting all of the systems that exist.
Yeah, I completely agree. Even as a recycler, I'd love you just to buy my product, but no, you need to look at all the recycling technologies and they're all part of the mix. There is no one that is going to succeed, that magic recycling technology that's going to solve all things. That's never going to exist. It will be a mix of different things solving a mix of different problems.
Okay. I really like that we're not pushing for exclusivity. And I find it very characteristic of the sustainability space in general. It's a very collaborative space. We're competitors as brands, but we all accept that this is something that we're not going to solve on our own. We need to be collaborating and working together. And to move on from that, we're speaking about identifying and tagging or DPPs and labels. What's the role of the consumer in this? Should it be up to the consumer to put it into the right place when to be recycled? How do they do that? Or should it be easy for the consumer, whether they've had it for 3 months or 10 years? How do we involve the consumer? What's going to help us that way?
Actually, a digital product passport is a data structure. So theoretically, the front end communicating with any stakeholder. Me, as an end user, I'm a stakeholder. Okay, so it can be defined any stakeholder in which template we communicate with a stakeholder. And this is a dynamic concept. So we can create a template or a front end for digital pass for the end user to have information that how to send it. For example, if the end user is in Norway, then and in Trondheim area, because the municipality in Trondheim has a specific sorting system. Okay, if they scan the digital product passport in Trondheim, they see what is the regulation in Trondheim, how they have to do it. For example, delivery to Fretex. Okay, and who is the closest to you? If I am in Montpellier, there is something else. This is quite dynamic. And with the technology today, we can actually connect a definite number of front end to the data. So I can actually connect the digital product passport to any number and say that, okay, according to the geography, according to the who is scanning, what sort of information. So if it's sorter is scanning, if it is the end user is scanning, where is the end user that is scanning, which kind of regulation is on this area is happening, the data is exactly the same. You're just adding some user experience to that. So it's quite, on the technical side, it's easy to do. This is operation and the policy and the effectivity that you guys have to think about it. What makes sense? In the tech level, it's quite easy to implement.
Okay. And so,
Hope so.
do we think that within, I don't know, let's say 5 or 10 years, consumers will be able to take any piece of clothing and put it in a recycling bin and it will end up in the right place for sorting? Or do we think it's going to take more technology, more time, more involvement? Is there a part of educating the consumer that we need to think about as well?
I mean, to your initial question, I would love to say yes. In 5 to 10 years, you can put it in your collection bin and it will go to the right place. Like, I would love for that to happen. Realistically, what everybody has in their wardrobes today makes that quite challenging. But I think, I mean, I don't necessarily have all the answers, but there is a lot of work to be done on the consumer side. There are organisations like Fashion Takes Action in Canada that work really, really clearly with consumers, and they have some great resources and they're very Canadian focused. We need organisations like that across the board, because for consumers, it needs to be easy. If it's difficult, they won't do it. Like, everybody has busy lives. We all have a million recycling bins or however many other bins in our homes. And to separate out for textiles is, you know, it's another challenge that consumers might not do because their lives are already busy. So how do we make it easy for them? How do we educate them about where to take their clothing to? And, you know, it's something that we face. We all have clothes in our wardrobe. And it's like, well, maybe I could take that to the charity shop. Maybe I could put that in a collection bin. Maybe that could go to a recycler. But how do we know that it's actually gone to the right place? And at the moment, I don't think we necessarily do. So I think there's a huge piece of work to talk to the consumer to help them understand. And I think that's half of the battle, is what goes into charity shops or what goes into collection bins that may end up at your recycling facility is not what should be in there. You know, they might be labelled with clothing that's suitable for rewear only, but then you might have a bag of items that are dirty, that are stained, that, you know, I've been in sorting facilities where they get plastic toys that are in garments. You know, they might just have loads of other items that are not what should be in there. So how do we help the consumer to do that easily? Because how we're doing it today doesn't seem to be working, given the amount of items that come through sorters that are not textiles and are not in the kind of quality that has been clearly stated on the collection bins. At least in the UK, we make it very clear what should and what should not go into those bins. Yet you go to a sorter and you clearly see items that should not be in there. So is it the messaging? Is it lack of messaging? I don't necessarily have the answer, but there is a huge piece of work to do to help the consumer understand. And then some of these inefficiencies that we're seeing on the sorting side may be reduced, and that leaves room for the feedstock that we actually want to see coming through sorting facilities. So in answer to your question, yes, in 5 to 10 years, it would be great. Are we going to get there? We have a long way to go.
Are there, kind of side question, are there, or are you aware of any organizations doing that educational part?
I think I would say, other than Fashion Takes Action, not really, not direct to consumer, not in the way that they're doing. I don't know, Sarah, Tim?
Actually, there is a project in Norway, 3 municipalities in Norway. They created a very, very simple instruction, exactly like the instruction you get when you go through the gate in the airport. to show that what you have to do. So they are getting like packages that you have to put your textile waste in those packages. And you scan that QR code. This is not a product digital passport. This is just a QR code. You scan this QR code, and it is a very short 1 minute video. You have a look at that video so that if it is wet, and this is like that and that, then you put it here. If it is in a good form, you send it to Fretex in this color of the box. If not, you put it in this color of the box. So they divided just 3 kind of very basic sorting, and they put an instruction. So they are asking the people in this 3 municipality, and this is a project supposed to go for 2 years. And we are not doing that, but I know that there is a company doing the whole packaging together with the municipality. And it works, you know? People are doing that. So I don't think it's going to take 10 years. I'm a little bit more positive.
I like it. Keep it simple and stupid.
Yeah.
Yeah. Instructions are there. Do this. Yeah, that's super interesting.
How we do it for other ways today. It's quite simple. It's not complicated. We have simple instruction and we follow on every product.
Okay, cool. And so, what do you think what's the point that you would like to make that we haven't touched on yet? Is there something that we have missed or not said, or what's your conclusion to this? So we've decided we have the technology, we need the education, we also need to support the sorters and collectors. Are those 3 sufficient? Are those 3 pieces of, call them technology if you like, sufficient to take us forward with textile to textile recycling, or are we missing anything else?
No, we're not missing anything else. The excuses for delay are just excuses. I know that it's really challenging commercially at the moment, but it will be even more challenging if you don't start now. And you don't have to start by fixing everything all at once. Just start with 5%. Just do something, but start that journey. Because if you don't start that journey, the cost of inaction, I think, is much, much, much higher. So just start.
It does make me think of there's no reward for a crisis averted. And how do we change that? How do we make, and I don't have the answer to this, and you probably don't, but if you have an idea, please feel free. It's how do we change this approach that, we solved something or we stopped something bad from happening, because there's no bonus for that because it didn't happen. If we suddenly all recycle, it's great. And what do we get out of it? It's very intangible.
I think it is. And I think we have to be stronger. We have to be bolder. We can see from the data that we have at Textile Exchange, where we're tracking against our Climate Plus goals, business as usual is not getting us where we need to go. And if we don't take action now, we're not going to get to that point that we want to get to by 2030. And I think it's easy to carry on with business as usual and say, this innovation is coming, or this will be here in 5 years, or we're waiting for legislation. And I fully appreciate there are huge challenges for brands today. But if we don't start on that trajectory, we've had enough knowledge for long enough to start making those changes. And if you go onto the Textile Exchange website, we have some data that shows where we're tracking against our Climate Plus goals from our baseline in 2019 up to where we need to be in 2030. If you look at our business as usual line, we're tracking much closer to that than our 45% reduction. So we're not going to get anywhere by doing what we're doing. We have to change what we're doing, and we have to do it now, and we have to be bold. And that might mean doing things differently and doing things that feel uncomfortable. But if we don't do them in 10 years' time, it will feel even more uncomfortable than not doing it now.
I like to add just one thing, and it is collaboration. I don't think we can do it without collaboration, because each one of us in the whole value chain and solution providers together, we are addressing part of the whole reality. And before we really start to talk to each other and work with each other, but not sitting separately on the silos, we're not going to solve the problem, because we are sitting with knowledge and we are sitting with understanding that can solve the big questions from the other side or the other ones. But each one of us sitting and we are trying to solve the problem alone. We are talking to each other in a lot of events, but when it is about developing solution, we are doing it separately. I think collaboration is the key.
So who are you collaborating with?
We are collaborating, first of all, with the industry.
Yeah.
Because you cannot develop things without actually collaborating very closely with the industry that's supposed to use it. Second, you cannot deliver a solution that do everything together. So first of all, we are thinking about physical identity, digital identity. They have to go together. So let's find a partner with each other. Who is working with sorting? Who is working with recycling? Who is working with a knowledge about PLM systems? Who is working with? We are working with a lot of different, actually, but we are a very, very small company. We are not. We are very, very small part of this. I think the collaboration concept needs to go on a bigger scale, in a way that we start to do the project together, learn from each other, and then scale it.
Yeah, thank you. Tim, if I say collaboration, what does that ring with you?
Well, I wouldn't be able to do what I'm doing now without the collaboration. So we partnered, when I came up with the technology to try and recycle polyester, that was working with an Austrian technology partner to try and figure out how we move from hard plastics to clothing. I couldn't have done it without their support or without their recognition that we needed to move in that direction. And then when I came back to the UK to try and find a place to put the recycling machine, I had to partner with the Salvation Army, who are the UK's largest collector and sorter. I needed to partner with somebody who had a need for that solution. You know, all of that was sharing everything that I knew with people that could help us get to a point where we'd solve the problem or solve part of the problem. You can't do it on your own. You certainly can't scale quickly enough on your own. So partnering and collaborating, absolutely, it's the only way we're going to get moving quickly on this.
Thank you, both of you, for sharing that. These are stories that need to be told, and it's great for you to. I appreciate that you're here to share them with the audience. Kate, any thoughts on collaboration? I mean, Textile Exchange is built on that, but
yes, I would say collaboration is at the core of what we do at Textile Exchange. We've been an organisation for over 20 years now, and we wouldn't be the organisation that we have grown to be without collaboration. If you saw my colleague Tilly's presentation at lunchtime, we have over 700 members in our network. We focus our work primarily with Tier 4s, but we work across the supply chain. We have members from all levels of the supply chain, all the way through to brands in our network. We provide a space for convening. We run our roundtables across all of our key fibre types, and we bring the community together to collaborate, to share ideas, and to really hold that space so that organisations can meet each other. They can maybe have access to information that they didn't have access to before. And, you know, without that, Textile Exchange wouldn't exist. We have our standards, which is collaborating across the industry from recyclers all the way through to brands and retailers. So we do a huge amount in terms of collaboration. It's why Textile Exchange exists. It's what we do every single day, is collaborate with other organisations with our shared goals and our shared partnership. And we want to meet our 2030 goals, and we want the industry to do it together with us. And we all have that shared purpose. Like, we're all here for the same reason. And we may sometimes disagree how we're going to get there, but we're all here because we want to reach the end goal. And that's really at the core of what we do.
Thank you. I don't think I want to add any more. This is just a great place to end this, like on the part of collaboration and your stories of collaboration. Thank you for sharing those. Before we go off, can each one of you share where we can find you or get in touch with you? Sarah, I think you have a booth here somewhere.
Yeah, we are on SL13. So just, come and talk to us. We love a good chat. Also, you can find me on LinkedIn. You're here.
Tim, where can people get hold of you?
I'm going to be here and at the Accelerating Circularity booth for today and tomorrow. So yes.
Great.
Or come and grab me over a beer.
Kate?
So there's myself, my colleague Tilly in the grey top in the audience. She's also here from our recycle team. We have a poster on our Materials Matter standard in the sustainability area in the other hall. You can find more information on our website if you don't find what you're looking for today. But Tilly and I are here both today and tomorrow. So please come and find us or come and have a look at our poster on Materials Matter.
Thank you. Do we have any questions from the audience? No?
They all want a beer.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's close this up, wrap this up, and let everyone have a beer. Thank you for being here. Thank you for sharing your experience and being really open about it. We really appreciate this. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you.